Hey guys, so I'm going through and grading tonight, and I'm noticing that a lot of us either didn't finish Colonial Life with Multiple Perspectives, or we stopped after issue one, assuming maybe because we didn't understand what issue two meant. Although now that we've talked about the proclamation line, it should make a little bit more sense. But I wanted to go over this assignment very quickly so you had something to reference just in case you did have questions on how to complete it, and that was why you stopped. I'm going to give you guys the benefit of the doubt and say that that's why. So, in this assignment, we're looking at the perspectives of 4 different colonists during this time period that we see right before this road to revolution, the American Revolutionary War that we're going to be getting into. So these are 4 very different individuals, and you're evaluating how they would answer these questions through the limited information that you have on them, which is why neutral is an option, because some of them don't mention any information that could help you answer this. So here's what we're doing. We're going to look at these 4 individuals in this presentation. So you've got a Harriet, a slave, to Cat, who's a Native American, so not technically a colonist, but living in the colonial area. You got Elizabeth, who is the wife of a northern farmer, and then Robert, who is a plantation owner. So you're going to go through and meet the colonists. Click on whichever colonist you want to start with. So if we look at Harriet, we see that she lives on a plantation in South Carolina. And even though she spends most of her time kind of working in the house and doing housework, she does note that she sees many other enslaved people working on this tobacco plantation from sunrise to sunset, backbreaking work. It's very clear she believes that life on a plantation is definitely not something to be desired. Then you've got Takat, who's a native, and he's living in the forest around New York. And he's talking about how the British kind of keep pushing them off their land, and that's something that he's definitely not a fan of. They said they tried to give him money, but then they got violent when the natives didn't accept the money. And then they've gotten lots of disease from the colonists. So pretty much the further they continue to keep moving into the lands of America, the more Takat and his tribe will be affected. Then we got Elizabeth, who is a wife of a northern farmer, but she talks about how it's hard work. She works alongside her husband on this farm. Talks about how difficult it can be. Also that she's got a lot of responsibilities around the house. But mentions it is really hard work on this farm. She would love to have more free time to do things like read and go visit big cities, which we'll see later that the plantation owner is frequently able to do. And just talking about some of her daily activities. So it's rewarding work to be on this small farm, but she herself has a lot of responsibilities in her situation. Then you got Robert, who is a plantation owner. He tells us he owns 10 slaves. It's on a tobacco field. He obviously makes some pretty good money. He's able to travel pretty freely. Doesn't look like he's doing a lot of the work on this plantation, and makes some mention there at the end that it'd be nice if he could have even more land and expand, and moving west would be perfect for that. So those are our 4 colonists. Now, based on what they're saying, how would they answer these questions? So I'm going to go through issue 1, where the question is just, is life easier on a southern plantation than on a small farm in the northern colonies? So if someone came up to Harriet and asked that question, you guys are kind of predicting what you think she would say, and then you're just going to give me your rationale or reason why you think, she would respond that way. So, is life easier on a southern plantation? From her reading, didn't sound like she felt life was very easy on a plantation. She talked about it being backbreaking work. And even though she maybe doesn't have experience on a small farm, most people think the bigger the farm, the harder it would be to work. So I think it's safe to assume that Harriet would not think that life is easier on a southern plantation. That was just this issue here is kind of a stereotype that Northerners had in their head that, oh, life down south is super easy because they just have slaves doing all their work for them and they don't do anything. So they don't really, both sides really don't understand each other. But Harriet obviously is the one doing a lot of that work, or at least watching people that look like her and part of her family do that work. So Harriet would be saying, is life easier in a southern plantation? No, it is not easier. If anything, it's harder. And you would just for that reason explain, like she talks about the backbreaking work in, her bio, and, even though she doesn't know about small farm life, we usually tend to think that our situation is tougher. And I think that it's safe to assume that she would think, work on a southern plantation is harder. Whereas Takat here, he probably wouldn't have. He'd be neutral. He wouldn't really have an opinion either way. He sees what northern farming is, but the way that natives live is probably so foreign or different than life with the colonies that I could see him not really having an opinion. So neutral would be pretty safe there. Then you'll just do the same kind of thought process through these other two. Now, issue 2, I think we get confused on because it talks about westward expansion, but now it should make a little more sense that we've talked about the French and Indian War, because that King's Proclamation where he says, no, you guys can't move into like the Ohio River Valley and like over towards the Mississippi. This is the land we're talking about. So the issue becomes, is westward expansion necessary for the success and growth of the colonies? And so how would each person answer that question? So you have Harriet as slave. Harriet would probably say no, because if there was more land, that means there would be more need for a workforce, which we know they're starting to turn, especially at this time, they're starting to turn away from indentured servantry and pretty much go all in with slavery. So Harriet would probably not want more land to be gained by the colonists, because that would mean more slaves and more work. So as westward expansion, she would definitely say no. And then you would just explain why. Right? Takat would probably have a very strong opinion on this as well. Because think about it, would he really want them to continue to move west? Because is he and his tribe living? So just kind of think of it that way. The last issue is pretty easy on what the role that women play. So you'll just kind of answer based on what you guys know about them. I hope this helps. I hope you are able to get this done. Let's get this done by Wednesday.